Hold on to your hats, folks. This is going to get wild. We're diving deep into the biggest, craziest conspiracy theory brewing in America today. It's a tale of elections, immigration, and a whole lot of political intrigue. This is going to be a wild ride.
Oh, here we go again. Another big conspiracy theory? I'm all ears, Sarah. What's the juicy gossip this time?
Come on, John. You know I love a good mystery, and this one's got all the ingredients for a real nail biter.
All right, I'm intrigued. Lay it on me.
Okay, so it all starts with this claim that the Democratic Party is intentionally importing immigrants specifically to swing states in an effort to secure future elections. They're essentially saying the Democrats are using immigration to manipulate the electorate for their own political gain.
So, they're just giving out free plane tickets to people who want to vote for their side.
It's not that simple, John. Think of it this way.
I guess I can see how that could work, but are you saying this is a widespread coordinated effort?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's all about evidence and interpretation. Some people believe there's a grand conspiracy afoot, while others argue it's just a perception.
I met some incredible people who have immigrated to this country legally, and they work hard to build a life here. I think it's important to differentiate between those who come here the right way and those who are trying to exploit the system.
Absolutely, but we're not talking about the majority of immigrants. We're talking about a specific group and the potential for them to be targeted for political manipulation.
So, what are the legal and ethical implications of this alleged voter importation? Does it truly threaten democracy? Is it even possible to pull off such a widespread scheme?
That's where things get really murky. On one hand, it could potentially undermine the democratic process if one party is able to effectively control the electorate. On the other hand, it's hard to imagine how such a massive operation could be carried out without leaving a trace.
I'm not convinced. Seems like a wild theory to me.
I hear you, John, but let's not dismiss it out of hand. Let's dig deeper into the claims and see if there's any truth to them.
All right. What's the evidence? Let's see what we can find.
That's the thing, John. There's no smoking gun. It's all about interpretation, and that's where Elon Musk enters the picture. He's thrown his weight behind this theory, and he's using his platform to sound the alarm.
Elon Musk, the guy who runs Tesla and SpaceX. What does he know about politics?
Well, he's no stranger to controversy, and he's got a huge following. His warning about the future of American democracy is a real game changer. He's basically saying that if things don't change, we're heading towards a one party state, just like California.
Is one party rule really the inevitable outcome? Wouldn't that eventually lead to public discontent? Wouldn't people start resisting?
It's not a hypothetical scenario, John. It's happened time and time again throughout history. One party rule can become a very real threat.
So, what can we do about it? How can we fight back against this one party rule?
We need to be vigilant and engaged citizens. We need to hold our elected officials accountable and challenge the narratives being pushed by both sides. And we need to make our voices heard.
It's like the fake news debate all over again. There's so much misinformation and noise that it's hard to separate fact from fiction.
But we have to be careful not to dismiss claims of voter suppression without digging deeper. There's a real danger of silencing legitimate concerns.
I'm still not buying this voter importation theory. It's just too far fetched.
I hear you, John, but I'm going to play devil's advocate for a moment. What if it's not just a theory? What if there's a grain of truth to it?
All right, I'm willing to entertain the possibility, but I need some real evidence.
Let's look at the numbers. It's estimated that there are anywhere from 11 to 22 million undocumented immigrants living in the United States.
How can they possibly be accurate? That's a huge range.
It's an ongoing debate, John. It's not as simple as taking a head count.
So, what does this have to do with the election?
Well, if the goal is to swing the election, these numbers represent a massive potential voting bloc.
But wouldn't the government be trying to crack down on undocumented immigration if that was the case?
That's where things get really interesting. There are differing views on how the government is handling immigration, and some people believe it's a deliberate strategy to allow more immigrants into the country.
You know, it's all starting to sound like a Hunger Games scenario. Is it possible that we're heading towards a society where the wealthy elite control everything and the rest of us are just pawns?
It's a dark, scary thought, but we can't ignore the potential. It's a scenario that's been played out in dystopian literature and film for decades, but it's not something we should just brush aside.
What if the system is rigged against us? What if our votes don't even matter? Or isn't that a bigger problem?
We can't lose hope. Even if the system has its flaws, we can still fight for our beliefs and work towards a better future.
Okay. You've got me thinking. I'm still not entirely convinced, but I'm willing to keep an open mind.
That's all I ask.
So what's next? What happens now?
It's up to us to decide. We need to be informed, engaged, and active participants in the political process. We can't just sit back and let the system dictate our lives.
I agree. And as always, stay curious and never stop questioning.
And remember, folks, change is possible. It's up to us to create the future we want.
Thanks for joining us on this wild ride. Stay tuned for more smart and crazy adventures.
Hold on, John, we're not done yet. There's so much more to discuss.
Oh, right, the mind blown a moment.
Exactly. We've been talking about voter importation and the potential for one party rule, but what about the other side of the equation? What about voter suppression?
You mean attempts to keep certain groups from voting?
Exactly. It's a real concern, and it's often overlooked in this debate.
So you're saying there might be attempts to make it more difficult for certain people to vote, or is it just a perception like you said earlier?
It's a complex issue, John. There's definitely a narrative around voter suppression, and there's evidence to support it. But it's also important to remember that there's a lot of misinformation and disinformation floating around.
So how do we know what to believe?
That's the challenge, isn't it? We need to be critical thinkers and we need to question everything.
Okay, I'm starting to get a headache. Can we take a break and come back to this later?
Sure, John, we can always come back to it, but I think it's important to keep this in mind.
I'll try to keep an open mind.
Good, because there's something else I want to share with you that's going to blow your mind.
Oh, here we go. What is it this time?
Have you ever heard of the shadow governments?
You're kidding, right? You can't be serious.
I'm serious, John. I've been doing some research and it seems like there's a lot more to the story than we initially thought.
Okay, I'm all ears, but I'm still skeptical.
That's fair, but just hear me out.
All right, I'm listening.
So, the shadow government is this idea that there's a secret group of powerful individuals who are pulling the strings behind the scenes. They're not elected officials, but they have immense influence over the political process.
This is getting a little too X-Files for me.
I know, but it's important to consider these things. We can't just dismiss them out of hand.
What kind of evidence do you have?
There's a lot of evidence out there, John. It's all about connecting the dots.
Okay, I'm still not convinced, but I'm curious. Tell me more.
Let's start with the history of the CIA.
The CIA, what does that have to do with anything?
Well, the CIA has been involved in some pretty shady stuff over the years.
Like what?
Well, there are allegations that the CIA has been involved in assassinations, coups, and other covert operations around the world.
That's pretty serious stuff.
It is, and some people believe that the CIA has been working with this shadow government for years.
I'm starting to feel like I'm in a conspiracy movie.
I know, but this is real, John. It's not just a theory.
Okay, I'm willing to listen, but you need to convince me.
All right, let's dive deeper into the history of the CIA and see what we can find.
I'm still skeptical, but I'm willing to follow you down this rabbit hole.
Good, because I think we're about to uncover something really big.
I'm holding my breath.
So, where do we start?
Let's start with the Culprit Project.
You know about that?
I've heard of it. It's this government program that experimented on people using mind control techniques.
Exactly, and that's just the tip of the iceberg.
I'm starting to get a little creeped out.
I know, but we're onto something big here, John. We need to keep digging.
All right, all right. What else have you got?
Well, there's also the Iran-Contra affair.
Oh yeah, that was a big one.
It was, and it involved the CIA, the Contras, and a lot of illegal arms dealing.
This is starting to sound like a conspiracy thriller.
It is, John, and it's all connected.
I'm still not entirely convinced, but I'm definitely intrigued.
Good, because we're just getting started.
Where do we go from here?
We need to dig deeper into these events and see how they connect to the current political climate.
So you think there's a connection between these historical events and what's happening today?
I believe there's a strong possibility.
Okay, I'm starting to see what you're getting at. This is all very interesting.
It is, John, and it's important because if we don't understand the past, we can't understand the present.
I'm starting to see things in a new light.
That's good, John, because we need to be aware of the forces at play in this country. We need to be informed, engaged, and prepared to fight for what we believe in.
I'm ready for the fight. What's our next move?
Let's continue our investigation and see what we can uncover.
I'm in. Let's do this.
Great. Let's get back to this voter suppression topic and see if we can find any evidence of a connection to this shadow government that you mentioned.
Okay, I'm not sure about this shadow government thing, but I'm willing to keep an open mind.
That's all I ask.